Hi, my name is Athika Nethi, and for my community report, I decided to focus on the city of Flint, Michigan, and their recent water crisis. So Flint, Michigan is a city that's 66 miles northwest of Detroit. It's got a population of 100,000 people, 56% of whom are African American, 41% of whom live under the poverty line. It's got a lot of problems even before the water crisis hit it. It was hard hit by the economic recession, just as Detroit was, after GM closed in Detroit, and it demolished several factories in the area as well. So Flint ended up sinking into a deep depression that it's still not yet even come out of, really. It's been consistently ranked really high, sometimes first, sometimes second, in the list of most dangerous cities in the United States, with crime rates of about 7 times higher than the national average. And it's in this backdrop of city and history that the Flint water crisis started happening. Basically what happened was, back in 1964, Flint decided to start buying water from Detroit instead of creating a pipeline that would give it water directly from Lake Huron, which is where Detroit was getting its water. Lake Huron is part of the Great Lakes, one of the cleanest, freshest sources of fresh water in the entire United States. So it makes a lot of sense that they would start buying it from Detroit at that point. But in April of 2014, Flint wanted to join a regional water pipeline that would give it much cheaper water. But when Detroit heard of this, they threatened to shut down their water supply from Detroit if they switched over, because Detroit wasn't about to switch over to the regional water pipeline either. And so Flint, trying to save some money, about $5 million over the course of a couple of years, decided to, instead of try to broker a stopgap measure deal with Detroit during the period of time between Detroit shutting off their water and when this regional pipeline would be completed, decided to actually start buying or pumping in their own water from the Flint River. The Flint River has incredibly high chloride levels and an incredibly low pH level. It's not safe water to drink at all. And Flint actually had not been treating their own water since they switched to buying water from Detroit back in 1964. And so they eventually put $4 million into the project of, redoing their treatment plants and everything. The issue, though, was that, again, Flint's water is just such a high saline content and such a low pH level that it became really, really, really difficult to even treat it to federal standards of chlorine and everything else. The issue also became that the chemical reaction that was happening while this Flint River water was so corrosively destroying the lead pipes that the water system in Flint had been based out of, it was actually corroding off of the phosphate and oxide layers of protection that were stopping the lead from actually entering the water system. So while it eroded that, it also started bringing lead into the water that the residents of Flint were drinking. The same thing happened with the iron treatment plants or iron water holding cells that this water was being held in, and so that turned the water a really gross brown color as well. But more dangerous was the lead poisoning that was steadily occurring to the residents of Flint. Lead poisoning leads to things like rashes, hair loss. The water started smelling really bad, turning yellow, things like that. Pets were vomiting. It hurt to bathe in the water. Even children and adults were having these all-out chemical rashes and burns all over their bodies. They were afraid to cook or even wash their dishes or even do their laundry with this water because it was poisoning them. And so residents started buying bottled water in bulk, even amidst officials saying that it was unnecessary and a waste of money. Then after that, E. coli and coliform and other bacteria were actually found in the water supply. GM actually stopped using Flint Water River and actually brokered a deal with Detroit because it was corroding the engine parts in their factory, and people were drinking this water. Flint local government maintained that there was nothing wrong, that everything was within federally standard levels of lead and everything. And it definitely wasn't. All this water was still causing various forms of health problems, including now vision and memory loss a couple months into it. Eventually, Governor Snyder of Michigan awarded Flint $2 million for an improved water system. But at this point, lead levels were about 7 times higher than EPA regulations. And also this level was being tested after letting the water run for a little bit before testing the water. And so when independent studies were done, it was found that the lead levels in the water was actually about 27 times the EPA action threshold, which is like almost twice as much as is classified as hazardous material by the EPA. City officials, and especially the Michigan Department of Environmental Quality, are still saying that the water is completely safe to drink, and are still saying that this is just mass hysteria and that everything is fine. While internal memos and emails are going around saying that even the chief of staff of Governor Snyder is worried about this and is wanting to do something about it. Eventually, after high levels of lead are also found in drinking fountains of schools, of 3 different public schools, eventually aid money is approved and the government finally acknowledges that there might be a lead problem in their water. Bottled water is given out, sold, things like that. People are being able to buy at least safe water at this point. So in September of 2015, the city finally acknowledged that there was a lead warning for the water and decided to switch back to Detroit water. The issue is that the lead is still in the pipes. It's still, all of the protective layers are still corroded away, and so people are still drinking poisoned water. There's been efforts to try and load the water itself with phosphate in order to try and help facilitate the buildup of those protective layers around the pipes again, but no one is sure how long this will take or even if it will work. And so we're just really not sure at this point whether or not the water in Flint will ever be safe to actually drink again. So again, there's actually both a federal and state level states of emergencies out for Flint right now. And even if the water does become safe to drink, there's no telling what the long-term effects of all of this this mass lead poisoning is going to lead to. And so this is why I think that this community is a community that really needs our help and that could absolutely benefit from a technology solution.